Amid the biting cold of the late winter days, James's modest farm was not only a sanctuary where his love for Diep bloomed like a vibrant flower, but also a battleground where the fight against class prejudice was waged. When James's father, Mr. Tong, unexpectedly showed up to vehemently oppose their relationship, Diep was forced to confront the painful memories of her past and the deep-seated insecurities that had haunted her. The brutal legacy of Pow resurfaced like a ghost from her history. Yet the empathy from Lynn and James's unwavering love provided her with a steadfast anchor. In this chapter 27, we are left to wonder, will Di find the strength to overcome Mr. Tong's opposition, or will their love crumble under the relentless pressure of familial expectations? Early that morning, at James's farm in Tanmin village, the icy air of December blanketed the fields, and a thick fog shrouded the rows of lush green vegetables that Diep diligently cared for each day. The dense mist draped over distant trees like a gossamer veil, leaving only their vague silhouettes in the pale light of dawn. With the temperature hovering around a mere 3°C, the penetrating cold seeped through Diep's patched-up thin jacket. Every gust of wind stung her exposed skin through tiny holes in her worn garment, a testament to countless days spent braving both scorching sun and drenching rain. As she gripped her shovel to pull out weeds, her calloused, trembling hands spoke of endless labor, beads of sweat absorbed into the red earth to nurture the thriving greens. Every swing of the shovel a silent declaration that she was still alive, still valuable despite a past that had tried to bury her. Dewdrops clung to the leaves like tiny gems in the weak early light, trailing slowly to join a scattering of small puddles on the red soil. Yet the cold made her shiver. Her bare feet in threadbare rubber sandals scraped against the moist earth, producing faint sounds in the silence, broken only by the whistling wind through brittle branches. A sound as if winter itself was intent on stealing away the remaining warmth in her soul. A distant chirp of sparrows, feeble yet persistent, seemed to try to dissolve the loneliness within her, only to underscore the vast emptiness of the field before her. Diep lifted her eyes to the endless expanse of the field, where the vibrant rows of vegetables stretched out like a living tapestry woven into the red soil. A tapestry born of her tireless efforts, of mornings awakening in pitch darkness, of bare feet trudging through icy mist to care for each tender plant. A mix of pride and a deep-rooted inferiority complex flared within her. A girl born poor, once sold off by her own uncle when she was only 12, raised in the shadows of humiliation and suffering, treated no more than a commodity, a child robbed of dreams for a few meager coins. This was James's farm, she thought, her heart warming at the memory of the man who had rescued her from the oppressive life under Powell, a cruel husband who tormented her for 5 long years, bellowing in drunken rages as she secretly read words scrawled in the dim moonlight through a gap in the roof. "You're only fit to be a beast of burden. What use is an education?" He had shredded her cherished notebook she had rescued from a pile of discarded trash. Its scattered pages echoing the shattered fragments of her self-worth, each punch and blow falling like relentless rain, leaving her huddled in the dark corner of a shabby shed, as blood trickled from the corners of her mouth, merging with rainwater soaking through the dilapidated roof. And then there was Mrs. May, her mother-in-law, whose sharp tongue cut through her like a knife, every word a merciless stroke. "You're useless. If you can't bear children, get out. Don't bring shame to our family. We won't waste our resources on someone like you." Diep gripped her shovel tighter, and silently, tears fell onto the cold ground, mingling with the mist as her cracked lips murmured a wordless plea. "I love James, but do I deserve him? Someone like me, poor, divorced, and once abandoned without a trace of pity. Can I really be by his side?" Lowering her gaze, she resumed her work, each trembling swing an effort to dispel the inner pain, even as her eyes remained clouded with sorrow, like the winter chill that clung to her every breath and heartbeat. Just a few miles away, at the modest rented house in Tanmin where James stayed, he awoke at dawn. The faint morning light filtering through the wooden window highlighted his determined, thoughtful eyes as he thought of Diep, the woman who had entered his life like a fragile ray of sunshine, yet was strong enough to warm his heart during these bitter winter days. His simple dwelling, with its cracked mud walls and patches of green moss clinging to its corners, told stories of many seasons gone by. Each fissure in the walls was like a scar along a rugged journey. A journey that had led him back to Vietnam, leaving behind the comforts of European life, to pursue his agricultural dream on this ancestral land. The earthy aroma wafting in from the field outside blended with the scent of dry wood from the thatched roof, evoking memories of childhood days when he and his mother sowed seeds in the small backyard field. In the modest room, the warmth from a tiny stove cast dancing red shadows on the earthen walls, momentarily banishing the bitter cold that crept through the old wooden windows and worn-out roof. Dressed in a dusty, heavy grey jacket that bore the marks of long days spent laboring on the farm, and with well-worn leather shoes that still carried traces of yesterday's red soil, he stepped into the small yard. His steady feet touched the cold earth with a resounding crunch on the dew-soaked ground as he gazed toward the field where Diep toiled. His breath mingled with the chilly air, evaporating into a cloud of white mist, as fleeting thoughts of Diep, her delicate, calloused hands, her pale face against the biting wind, filled his mind. Is she all right out there in the cold? She's strong, yet sometimes so stubborn. Refusing to admit fatigue or ask for help, he recalled her rare, fragile smile, a sliver of light like the moon breaking through a cloudy night, that once stirred his heart in ways he had never experienced amid the modern comforts of his European days. In that moment, he silently vowed that Diep was stronger than she believed, that she deserved not only him, but a life filled with possibilities she had never dared dream of. With that promise in his heart, he turned back inside to his small wooden desk, where scattered papers and meticulous plans for a new project awaited. Plans he intended to use to visit her at the farm, carrying with him a little warmth, perhaps an old jacket or simply his hand, to drive away the encroaching winter chill, and remind her that she was never truly alone. Meanwhile, Diep continued pulling weeds, her hands trembling from the cold, her slender fingers clenching the handle of the shovel. Each swing, each hard thud of metal meeting the red soil, was a desperate effort to dispel the self-doubt that gnawed at her, a silent affirmation that she could still stand tall despite the shadows of her past. Suddenly, the sound of a car engine emerged in the distance, a peculiar noise amidst the stillness of the field. Looking up, her heart skipped a beat as she spotted a sleek car coming to a stop before the farm, its wheels kicking up a cloud of red dust that settled lightly over the nearby vegetable rows like a thin layer of dry mist. Out stepped a middle-aged man in a sharp black suit, his polished leather shoes marking a stark contrast to her tattered sandals. His icy gaze appraised her as if she were nothing more than a defective product, every step and scrutinizing look exuding a cold authority reminiscent of James, but even harsher, imbued with an oppressive force she had never felt before. "Mr. Tong," James' father approached, his leather shoes imprinting deep marks in the soft earth. In a cold, resonant tone that matched the stillness of the surroundings, he said, "You must be Diep." With a trembling nod and breath visible in the freezing air, she whispered, "Yes, sir. Who are you?" His response was as frigid as ice. "I am James' father." Diep's face drained of color as her hands loosened their grip on the shovel. The metal hit the red earth with a harsh clatter, her panic surging like an invisible blow. His father? How did he know? What was his purpose here? Mr. Tong's scrutinizing gaze swept over her, from head to toe, evaluating her with an air of disdain. His tone was measured yet cutting. "I know you and James love each other, but I cannot allow it. You're poor, uneducated, with a past marked by a previous marriage. How can you be good enough for my boy?" With her head bowed and tears silently trailing down, she managed, "I understand." Without a trace of compassion, he continued, "My family is wealthy. James needs someone with business acumen and proper education, not someone like you. Poverty isn't a sin, but trying to rise above it only leads to a painful fall. Find someone else. Do not burden my son." With that final warning, he turned and strode back to his car, his leather shoes leaving deep imprints on the earth, a reminder of his unyielding authority. Diep stood there, shattered, as tears streamed down her cheeks and blended with the cold mist. A silent admission, "I know I'm not good enough. I never measure up to him." Yet, as memories of James ignited like a small flame amid the harsh wind, she recalled the tenderness in his eyes when he taught her to read, the warmth of his hand as it clasped hers when she thought she might collapse, and his resolute voice saying, "You can do it, Die." Clenching her fist, Her tears subsided, her reddened eyes reflecting newfound determination as an inner promise resonated. No, I cannot give up. He had given me hope. I must protect this love, no matter the hardship. Afterwards, James left the rented house and drove to his small company, a modest 4-story building set amidst the fields, its silver metal roof creaking in the wind. Inside, wooden desks were cluttered with ledgers and ink-stained papers. Tuan, the longtime friend and manager of the woodwork shop, looked up with a spark in his eyes upon seeing James. "Morning, James. The workers have already left for Tet, so I'm planning to give them a 10% bonus, about 500 million VND in total." James frowned. 10% is too little. Let's bump it up to 15%. They'll need the extra cash at year's end. Tuan nodded. Got it. I'll inform the accountant. I even invested 30 billion VND in the 2 small companies, the dried fruit and construction ventures. As you instructed. Your father has already approved it. James acknowledged, yet his heart was uneasy. What if something was wrong? Is Diep all right? After the meeting, he decided to head straight to the farm. Later that afternoon, Diep sat in a small wooden house, her heart in turmoil from Mr. Tong's harsh words. Determined to confront him and fight for her love, she called Tuan, the man who once helped her escape, and pleaded for his help to meet with Mr. Tong. With a worried look, Tuan asked, "Diep, what's wrong? Why do you want to see James' father?" Her voice trembled as she replied, "I have to make him understand that I truly love James." With a sigh, Tuan said, "He's a tough man, but I'll take you to him." They climbed into a car and drove to the hotel where Mr. Tong was staying, a luxurious building in town, its golden lights streaming through the glass doors that accentuated his commanding presence as he stepped out. Standing before him, Diep's hands shook, yet her eyes remained resolute. "Sir, I know I'm poor and uneducated, but I love James with all my heart. I'm not trying to take advantage of him. I just want to be by his side." Mr. Tong regarded her coolly. "You speak well, but your past, a life of a previous marriage, is something my family cannot overlook. You need to leave." Through choked sobs, Diep managed, "I never chose to be with Powell. I was sold off." He cut her off sharply. "That's all in the past, and cannot be changed. You're not good enough." With that, he walked away, leaving Diep alone, her pain as raw as if her heart had been trampled underfoot. Meanwhile, James returned to the farm to find Diep missing. Panic welled inside him as he roamed the fields, calling, "Diep, where are you?" He dashed through the rows, his heart pounding with dread. Had she been taken by her father-in-law? He urgently phoned Lin, his secretary. "Do you know where Diep is?" Lin's voice trembled. "I heard from Tuan that she went to see your father. I'm not sure where she is now." James' face fell. Diep had met with his father. He knew he had to find her immediately. Diep, having left James due to the unbearable pressure from Mr. Tong, now finds James grappling with his own father's opposition. Will love prevail in the end? Stay tuned for Chapter 28, where the answer will be revealed.
Haki, bạn đã đói chưa? Cô hỏi với giọng dịu nhẹ nhàng như nói với một người bạn thân thiết. Cô lấy chút thức ăn căn bếp nhỏ xuống, đặt xuống quan sát Haki. Anh ngấu nghiến với đôi mắt long lanh nhìn chú chó. Cô cảm thấy lòng nhẹ nhõm hơn một chút, nhưng nỗi dây dứt về giam vẫn không ngừng gõ cửa tâm hồn cô. Mình đã từ chối anh ấy, nhưng tại sao là mình đại đau như thế này? Cô tự hỏi, tay vô thức siết chặt mép áo rách như thể muốn bám víu một điều gì đó không thể chìm vào hố sâu cảm xúc. Cô thức dậy quyết định bắt đầu ngày mới bằng công việc quen thuộc, nấu ăn cho Haki, chăm sóc vườn. Khi ngọn lửa trong bếp nhỏ bùng lên, cô nhìn vào đó, tưởng tượng con mực giam hiện ra giữa những tia sáng nhảy múa. Cô nhớ đến giọng nói trầm ấm của anh, cách anh kiên nhẫn đến bên cô một ngày trong bóng tối, nhưng rồi cứ với lời từ chối hôm qua lại hiện về sắc nhọn như một nhát dao. Mình đã nói anh ấy không nên yêu mình, nhưng anh ấy đã thật sự rời đi. Mình sẽ sống như thế nào đây? Nỗi sợ mất anh trộn lẫn với sự không xứng đáng khiến cô đứng lặng hồi lâu quên cả việc khuấy nồi cháo đang sôi. Trên con đường mòn dẫn vào rừng, Diệp mang theo chiếc gùi tre bước đi với ý định hái đu đủ để bán. Công việc này không chỉ giúp cô kiếm tiền mà còn là cách để cô tạm quên đi những suy nghĩ hỗn loạn trong lòng. Nhưng khi cô dừng lại bên cây đu đủ cao vút, một bóng dáng bất ngờ xuất hiện từ phía sau giật mình. Diệp đi đâu về đấy? Giọng nói vang lên.